Hi, everybody. I'm Tally Palmer. We've met before, and I work at the Institute for Water Research at Rhodes University in South Africa, and we're the host and hub of the African Research Universities Alliance Water Centre of Excellence. We're busy presenting an open courseware course on the adaptive systemic approach, and we're busy with Module 1, the theoretical foundation, and Unit 1, the introduction. And we've got to the very last subunit of this introduction where we raise the question, how do we know that the ASA can be effective or has been effective? And I want you at the same time, while we do this, always to remember that people live in catchments and that society is embedded in natural systems and that we comprise complex social ecological systems. Now, one of the reasons that we are reasonably confident in the ASA is because we've practiced. And this booklet that I introduced at the beginning of the first unit describes some of the research that has been done in the past and practice that gave rise to some of the ideas in the ASA. But the way it has been consolidated most recently is in the Tita Project. And the Tita River catchment is in the northeastern Cape of South Africa. There's the Eastern Cape province. It's the province I live in. I live in a small town here called Makanda. And the Tita River catchment is to the northeast, and it's part of a much bigger catchment called the Umzimvubu. And the Umzimvubu River is the last remaining large river not to have a dam on it in South Africa. The Tita catchment is a largely rural area, upland grasslands, quite a lot of livestock grazing and quite a lot of erosion has taken place. The Tita Project is a consortium and it's a collaborative project funded by our Department of Environment Affairs and various collaborating partners. And the project has a vision. Now, if you participated in Unit 1.3 and looked at the adaptive planning process, you will have found that the adaptive planning process was the place in which stakeholders together created a vision. And in fact, in this project, the researchers and stakeholders together created a vision for the Tita Project. And that vision is to support sustainable ecosystems and livelihoods for local people through integrated landscape management that strives for resilient social ecological systems and which fosters equity in access to ecosystem services. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to have thriving people in a thriving landscape. Now, how did we achieve this? Well, we actually, out of the evolving practice, and this is how we moved towards the ASA, we used some of the same foundational concepts. We understood about complexity and complex social ecological systems. We practiced transdisciplinarity, and we practiced together social learning that is transformative and brave. It crosses boundaries of conventional practice into a transgressive, exciting space. And the research that we did was undertaken in what we called communities of practice, with particular goals that helped us move towards the vision with stakeholders in the catchment. And we worked on governance because we wanted to embed local people in governance structures that were making decisions about the catchment. We needed to know about knowledge and learning, how we generated knowledge with people across the catchment, what their livelihoods were, what they depended on. The fact that livestock farming was causing erosion, we needed to know about sediment transport. We needed to know about the livestock and the fire regimes and the grazing systems that help them produce livestock. And then in order to understand such a complex system, we had to think about systems thinking and practice. So quite a big research project with large numbers of people working in discrete areas, but also connected together in communities of practice, and very much connected by that PMO, by the participatory monitoring, evaluation, reflection, and learning. So a lot of these ideas in practice. Now it's a bit of a complicated diagram, and I'm going to leave you to look at it in detail on your own. But basically what it tells you is that in the first 3 years of the project, it was quite contained. It's quite a long project. It's an unusual project in that we would expect to be funded for 3 years, and then another 3 years, and then possibly a last 3 years. We've actually finished these 6 years. But in the second 3 years, the scope and ideas of the project ballooned out into something really quite big and exciting. And we encourage you to read some of the papers about the Tita. So actually that slide was, that slide was to tell you something about bounding a project. So the boundary of the project in the first 3 years was quite contained. And then a whole lot of processes led us to have a much bigger boundary of the Tita project in the second tranche of 3 years. And you can imagine how you would have to adapt as this kind of process grew and expanded. So this is how we worked to understand the bounding of the Tita project. Then we undertook an adaptive planning process with numbers of people across the catchment. And if you remember that idea of coming up with a vision together, most of the people in the catchment speak isiXhosa, which I don't speak, but we always have translation. We have processes in isiXhosa with translation into English and vice versa. And the vision that was co-created was the Tita River catchment will be sustainably and adaptively managed to improve the health of the veld, that's the grassland, and the rivers, and therefore better livestock production, less erosion, and healthy people. Good political leadership will ensure transparent communication to all the people. Natural and financial resources will be used honestly to the benefit of all people. Empowered, knowledgeable people will live in a safe, low-conflict, well-serviced catchment. Now, in creating that vision, you can imagine the set of problems that exist in the catchment that would cause people to come up with, this is the vision of what we want our catchment to be like. And so that was a very interesting process, and the research has been undertaken to contribute into achieving that vision. And the research is quite diverse. Here we have people locating villages, doing stakeholder mapping and mapping of different resources. We did all the work in the catchment itself, engaged with people. These are citizen researchers collecting sediment and turbidity data in the river. The river flows pretty well chocolate brown in the summer. This is actual land restoration where they're covering it with eco-materials in order to enhance growth. And this is an auction where local people have had their livestock brought into a more vibrant value chain where they're able to sell livestock for a better price. So these were the wide variety of research projects that were undertaken. Then we worked with different people in the catchment to understand this business of adaptive management. So the vision enabled us to have an objectives, a hierarchy, and a plan. There started to be implementation and monitoring, and people got to grips with the fact that you needed to be adaptive in your governance system, in your planning, in your management, and in the implementation and operations, and in monitoring and evaluating everything that you did. So there's quite a process in training people and alerting them to how to undertake strategic adaptive management. And then we all got involved with PMO. Always together, always in groups, setting objectives, monitoring and evaluating how they're going, reflecting and learning together. And out of it, what have we learned? Well, we've got better livelihoods, We have people growing a grass called vetiver, which is sold as a grass that helps stabilize and reduce erosion. We have citizen monitors. We have citizens involved in groups in participatory governance, and quite a lot of progress towards that vision. But some of our learning has been that you can't do it alone, and partnerships are essential, and that you need trust, humility, and courage, as well as flexibility and connectedness to make these kinds of projects go forward. So thanks very much. That's an introduction to the adaptive systemic approach. That's the end of Unit 1. And I hope that you will move on to enjoy the whole course on the adaptive systemic approach. And if you're watching this unit as part of one of the other courses, that you'll enjoy that course and come back to the rest of the ASA as well. Goodbye for now.